Good afternoon, everybody. Calm Biker here. Bit of a strange one today. It's a mix today of a bit of good news and a lot of frustration. Well, two bits of frustration, one bit of good news. And I'm keep checking down at my drift remote, which is to do with the first bit of frustration. So I've actually recorded 2 vlogs today, only I haven't. Because the new Drift Ghost S is playing up. I'm starting to think that it's just a bad camera. I mean, the pictures are great, the sound's good, but compared to the Drift HD I just never had a problem really. When I first got it I had one corrupt file and that seemed to get sorted out once I'd formatted the card, never had that again. And then I had some corrupt files after I dropped my helmet with the camera still attached, which kind of fair enough, and again I managed to recover what I needed to and formatted it and it was all fine again. And that was over a period of, I don't know, 9 months or something, 8 or 9 months. Whereas the Ghost S just seems to cause me problems. If you watch my videos you'll know about the first one that went back finally because it just refused to switch on a lot of the time, and you have to keep popping the battery out and putting it back in again and fiddling about before it would actually play the game. And then this one, I've had a couple of problems when I first got it with it just locking up, and I've not had the problem with it wouldn't switch on, but I've had problems with it locking up. I've had problems with it corrupting some files and a couple of other things. And then today I've just been recording the first half of my journey to work. Had a few interesting things happened, including a complete clown of a driver who decided on a 30 miles an hour zone to overtake me in the bus lane on the left hand side, almost clipping my bar ends while he was doing about 60 in his Focus ST. And I haven't got that video unfortunately, which is irritating. So, and it basically just, I pressed the button to start recording, it went beep, started recording, the red light started flashing, it's still flashing now, good. And at the end of the second vlog I recorded, I looked down and noticed it wasn't flashing anymore. So I took the camera off my noggin, looked at it, and it just said on it low speed card. Now it isn't a low speed card, it's a class 10, quite expensive. They're not that expensive SD cards or micro SD cards, but relatively expensive brand. It's a SanDisk one. So frustrating, very frustrating. So I lost my 2 vlogs and I lost my bit of video footage. The other frustrating bit is I'm on the way into the office in the afternoon on a Friday. On Monday I was doing some development for work and I started getting some weird errors when I was compiling my software, and it appeared that my SSD, solid state disk, like, if you don't know what one is, it's like a hard disk but there's no physical disk in it, it's just memory if you like. It looked like that failed. Whether it failed or not, lots and lots of files have become corrupt, which was frustrating. So I had to install on my second disk to get myself going again, take it into the office, get a new SSD put in, and then they copied everything off the physical disk, which is my second disk, onto the SSD to make it faster. And I've spent, well, I actually took it in yesterday for the new disk. I'd spent Tuesday and Wednesday installing everything again. It still wasn't quite finished because for software development you tend to have lots and lots of software on your machine. And so I got it imaged yesterday and got the stuff moved across onto the fast disk. And I was finishing off the last few bits today and I'm just having lots and lots of blue screens of death. that blue screen that appears with a random error, and then your machine just goes off, and you have to start again with whatever you're doing, which is really, really annoying. So I'm going in the office again because it looks like maybe it's not the SSD that had failed after all. Maybe there's a more serious problem. That's my frustrations out of the way. Now the good news. You had me mentioning the other day, probably, if you watch my videos, that I've been helping Mrs. C practice her driving theory test questions. Some of my favourite questions in there. I think, to be fair, the theory test is probably a good thing. It's just not necessarily approached in the best way. But I've said that before, so I won't go over that again. You read some of the questions and you realise that, you know, it's an important point that they're trying to make sure you have knowledge of. But because it's multiple choice and they couldn't think of good alternative but incorrect answers in a lot of cases, it makes some of the questions ridiculously easy. My favourite at the minute, and I'm thinking I might pick out my 10 favourites out of the book and maybe do a little theory test vlog just to amuse you all. But I think my favourite one at the minute is the motorbike one. And the question is, and I'll have to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact wording, but the question is basically, you arrive at the scene of an accident involving a motorbike. The motorcyclist is laid on the floor, semi-conscious. When should you remove his helmet? And the 4 possible options are: immediately, otherwise the motorcyclist won't be able to breathe. Which is obviously something we all know about as bikers, is that you can't breathe when you've got a helmet on. How these people do 4-hour journeys, I don't know. Their lung capacity is amazing. Another answer was, only if the motorcyclist asks you to. Another one was, only remove it if there is an emergency, such as a blocked airway. And the 4th answer was, never remove a motorcyclist's helmet, you might scratch it. Hopefully you all know the answer to that one. Anyway, so we've been practicing them questions all week. Mrs. C's gone through about 1,000 in a book to make sure she knows all the relevant answers. She's been practicing her hazard perception videos on the internet. I've been questioning her from the book and then just trying to ask her the questions from the book without giving her the multiple choice answers, just to make sure she actually knows it rather than has just remembered the question. And I've taken her around showing her the signs that she might see, just pointing everything out with her as a passenger so she can really concentrate on the signs. Because I think there's too much emphasis is put on knowing what the individual signs mean and not how they string together. You know, it's easy to know that there's a no entry sign, but it makes more sense when you see that there is a, keep an eye on this one, it makes more sense when you see a sign that starts with a no right turn ahead, followed by a no right turn next to a no entry, where the white lines are long white lines with short gaps. You know, it all kind of fits together, but the book never really talks to you about that. As lots of people said to me whilst I was learning to ride, you know, all the clues are there on the road, but you've got to understand how they all go together. Anyway, she's been practicing that all week. She's gone into Hull today to the DSA place, the Pearson View Test Centre, and she's called me just before I've had to set off to the office to tell me that she's passed. So she's one step closer to becoming a driver. So congratulations, Mrs. C. I'll make you a nice cup of tea later as a present, as a prize. So thank you everyone for watching. Ride safe, and I'll talk to you all again soon.